Get out the insurance cards, get out the co-pays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
What is up? Welcome in. We are the One and Done Show. We are your fast break of college basketball information. And tonight, we are doing what we do best. We are showcasing one of the most fun and exciting programs in the entire college basketball landscape. That is our conversation with Loyola Marymount head coach Stan Johnson. And we are also getting you the latest from around the world of the transfer portal, the 5 biggest players who have committed in the last few days, and the 5 best players remaining in the portal as of tonight. With me, as always, the captain of our ship at Green Screens Media. He is MC Holland34 on Twitter. He is Mr. Mike Holland. Mike, welcome in.
Yo, I'm excited. Another show. Seems like we're here every 24 to 48 hours, but it's college basketball, right? It never sleeps. I'm excited about tonight's show. We're going to spotlight the head coaching interview earlier that you and Jay got to be a part of with Coach Stan Johnson there. And then, we're going to break down these recruits that have, decided where they're going to spend at least their next year of college basketball. And then, some of the top guys in my top 20 of my big board, which is filled with 250 players. And you have not seen it yet. We just did a refresh as of yesterday. The table will be updated again tomorrow. And there's a lot of guys committed on that board, but still a lot of big pieces left to fall. And it's on drroto.com. Head on over there. You can check it out. It's free, put a lot of time and effort into it. We all kind of congregated on these 250 players. And man, we've had some guys come in, come out, still people entering the portal as of May 11th. So we still got some time here. We're almost under 2 weeks here. So it's going to be nice to finally get a final list put out here in a few weeks. But spent plenty of time on that. So look forward to updating that for you guys as we move forward.
Yeah, as this information has been coming fast and furious, and it seems like we're getting new Photoshops and new graphics every single day of guys committing to a different program, it's super helpful to have that list on standby to really just wrap your hands around how much talent is still left in this portal, right? It just feels like big name after big names fall in. Then you get over to drroto.com, you pull up Mike's big board, and it's like, oh man, there are still 10 guys inside of the top 30 that are available, right? There are a number of guys in the single digits that are still available. So really good way to kind of put a bow on all of it and to get a good picture of how that transfer portal market looks. But before we get into any of that detail, like we mentioned at the top, Jay and I did have a chance to sit down with Loyola Marymount Lions head coach Stan Johnson earlier today, get his perspective on the program that he is building there at Loyola Marymount, the very tough WCC that they are in a prime position to compete for, and the overall landscape of college basketball. So let's hear from Coach Johnson.
Our guest at this time, entering his 4th season this fall as head coach of the Loyola Marymount Lions, Coach Stan Johnson. Coach, congrats on a nice bounce-back year. You won 19 games last year, finished 4th in a very, very tough WCC, and you beat both St. Mary's and Gonzaga last year. How would you describe the season, and what were your key takeaways from your 3rd year as head coach of the Lions?
Well, I thought we had a good year. I thought we made some strides in a lot of different ways. It was great to have a year where, nothing was really impacted by COVID. That's really been the first time since I've been here. It felt normal. It's what a basketball season was supposed to look like. So I was really happy with that. Hopefully we're on our way past all those issues. But I thought we saw great progress within our guys individually. I thought our program took, a massive leap in the right direction. We've been very fortunate. We've been here 3 years, and we finished 3rd and 4th in 2 out of the 3 years. And this year I thought the league was as good as it's ever been, top to bottom. I mean, really, really good, top to bottom. There was absolutely no game you could look at and say, hey, we got this. And I felt the parity was really, really, really close, 1 through 10. So I'm proud of the year we had. Obviously, being a coach, I felt like we left a couple on the table. I thought we were really close to a massive goal. But we let some games on the table that I hope will be a great learning experience as we continue to build the program, take the next step next year.
Yeah, in today's day and age, especially in the WCC, you either win or you learn, and it feels like you have a lot of momentum and building blocks to work off of heading into the upcoming season. Coach, I want to maybe take a little bit of a look back, looking over your coaching career. You've had stops as an assistant at places like Utah, Arizona State, most recently Marquette. So I'm curious to know, what are some of the things that you took away from your time in those various spots that have kind of shaped you as a head coach?
Well, I've worked for a lot of different people. I mean, my coaching background goes way beyond those places. I think the names of those places pop off the sheet, but I started at Southwest Baptist, at Bemidji State was my first college job, and I learned as much being there as I did at Marquette. I mean, at Bemidji, you had to, clean the floors, dry the butts, order the pizza, do all the dirty stuff, clean the dorms, and then coach basketball. I think that gives you such a perspective as you move up in the profession. One thing for me, it always gave me an appreciation for every job because I knew where I came from. But also at those levels, I mean, I worked for some tremendous coaches. I mean, Jeff Gio, who was the head coach of Bemidji and Southwest Baptist, is one of the best coaches I've ever been around. Names you'll never probably hear of. Who at that level, man, you have to find so many creative ways to win. It's hard with lack of resources, and I got to a place like Marquette where, they spend as much money on basketball as anybody in the country. So I think seeing all perspectives has allowed me to come in this program and understand how to build from where we were to where we are now, not just in terms of the winning or the losing, but where we are in terms of fundraising, where our program is, just in terms of competing at a high level and having what it takes and being creative to find ways to win. I think my journey in those places have shown me what being elite looks like, how you build a program, but also how you have to be creative when you don't have as much. And both ends of the spectrum have helped us get to where we are today.
Talking about perspective, Coach, you do have to have another perspective now as things have continued to evolve in the college game. You have to look through it a different lens in terms of the transfer portal and NIL. During the offseason, we talk a lot of college basketball still. And we like to say around here that college basketball never sleeps. And as a basketball coach now, and at that level, you're having to deal with the transfer portal and NIL and things like that. You guys have been busy in the transfer portal window, landing names like Juice Hill from LSU, Lars Tiemann from Cal. So two-parter here for you, Coach. How do you balance using the transfer portal versus your player and retention and / development? And then obviously, what are you expecting from the two incoming players in Hill and Tiemann?
Well, we've gotten those guys, but, we also have Justin Wright from North Carolina Central, who is terrific. Again, his name doesn't pop off as much because maybe, quote unquote, the school doesn't have the same kind of publicity as where those other two guys are coming from, but he's every bit the player. So in terms of those three guys that we've added, we've also added a high school kid from Corona Centennial, and Aaron McBride, who I believe is a guy who could have played in a lot of different leagues. So those four kids we have right now, I'm excited about. Obviously the three guys in the portal, they all bring depth to our program. They bring maturity, veteran leadership. They've been in big games. Big Lars adds tremendous size to our front court. I think we've got now one of the bigger front courts in the country, with 2 7'1", 7'2" guys down there, and both of them complement each other. Rick, who's on our team, is a specialist defensively. Lars is a guy that can really score. Juice, he brings a guy that, I think at Murray State, if I'm not mistaken, they were 30-3 and advanced to the second round of the tournament. So we're going to get that back, who had a massive year. And, I think he's a high level player, a guy with great speed. And then, Justin can really score the ball. from the 2 guard spot, and he's a big physical guard. So I think what you're seeing from us is probably what it's going to look like as we move forward. We're going to be active in the portal every year, and we'll try to sprinkle in a high school kid or two. But it's really hard to build with high school kids, I think, in this era, because teams are so old. The other thing is, the minute they're good enough, they're going to leave anyways. So it's a tough balance with how the portal is. But right now, that's my philosophy. It'll obviously, it can change, but we want to, if we can get guys with multiple years available still from the portal, that makes it better. Now you can retain. And if you can add some high school guys that you can sprinkle in and build around and keep your program together, that's the route we're going to take here at LMU.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned earlier that we're not seeing COVID impact games anymore, but that COVID year is still hanging around, and getting older seems to be a pretty valuable strategy in today's college basketball game. Speaking of these additions that you've made through the portal, obviously we are still within that portal window, right? It's going to stay open until May 11th. So rosters are largely in flux. You got some good news with Kelly Leapepe returning for another year. So along with him, or specifically about him, curious to know your point of view on players that, you're expecting to be back next year, and, to what extent you are looking at them to take a step for leadership and on-court contribution.
Yeah, very excited about Kelly. Kelly's been now, he's been a 4-year starter in his time here. For the most part, he's played in huge games. I thought we saw a tremendous jump in his play last year. I mean, he went from averaging 9 to close to 14. He went from a 37% three-point shooter to a 44% shooter. So I don't think we've seen the best of Kelly. I think he's just starting to come into his own, and I think that's a big reason why he wanted to come back, is because he felt he was getting better. And I also think he felt like he was close to another. And, he has a chance to be a huge part of it. I don't know if there's other guys like individually that I want to single out, but I think collectively our front court, I'm really excited about our front court. Those guys played a lot of minutes last year. They're all back. And, I think we're going to lose, quite the leader in Cam Sheldon. So, Kelly and our bigs, they now have an opportunity to become more vocal and establish a leading role in what we're doing. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Something else to be excited about for your program. An announcement was made yesterday that your team will be participating in the Cayman Islands Classic. Is that tough to balance as a coach, taking a trip like that with your team, with the business side of things and, making that trip and all that stuff? What are your expectations for a trip like that? And how do you, what sort of steps do you take to make sure that your team is focused and ready to play?
Yeah, I mean, again, I want to always expose our guys to different places in the world. I mean, I think that's all the big part of the collegiate educational process. It's not always what you're doing in the classroom. Last year we took our team to Europe. We went to Barcelona. We went to Italy and Greece. I thought that was a great cultural trip for our team. It also I thought made us a little more cohesive. It brought us together. And then we played in the Jamaica Classic last year, which was a great event, and we were fortunate enough to win it. I believe we beat Wake Forest in the championship. So I expect the same thing, to go out here and for our guys to see another part of the world. This is a chance for us to come together and grow and play in a tremendous tournament. I mean, I think it's a great field, a really, really good field. We're going to have our work cut out for us, but the objective is to come back from that tournament a closer team and a team that experienced some success on the floor while we're there.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's got the makings for a pretty well-rounded experience overall. You also mentioned your victory during the holiday tournament over Wake last year. Seems like the Deeks are out for revenge. They're joining you at the Cayman Islands Classic this year, so should have a fun rivalry to watch if nothing else. Coach, I want to kind of take a step back from everything that goes into your off-season planning and your program building, and just, learn a little bit more about your personal off-season plans. Do you have any trips planned? Do you have sort of routines that you like to fill what is probably a limited amount of free time with?
Yeah, the off season is so weird, especially with the portal now. It really takes you late into the year, and then as soon as you look, you're into summer school, and then that's over after 8 weeks, and
it's go time.
In a couple of weeks, and then you're on the go again. So it's really hard. But one of the cool things this summer, we're going to go celebrate my father's 70th birthday, and also my parents' wedding anniversary. We're going to go to Cancun with our whole family and brothers and all the kids and all that. So that's something in late August that I'm looking forward to. But in between now and then, small trips with the family. My kids are into dance, and my daughter dances. My 2 kids play basketball. So trying to be present at those events. And then, from a basketball standpoint, trying to get us better, finding areas where we weren't as successful in last year, dissecting those areas so we can move the needle a year from now, and then evaluating the things we did good, and hoping that we can continue that a year from now. And then big part of what we do is culture, and how do we continue to grow our culture with a lot of new guys coming in. How do we build that connection, that bond, so we can get off to a fast start? I mean, those are the things that I'll kind of be wrapping my mind around, this summer, and then taking some breaks here and there if you can get them.
And it's interesting because like I said, we talk college basketball all the time, and we don't always think of it from the perspective of, this is a parent that wants to be present as well and make time for that. And that was very cool to hear you talk about that there. One last question before we get you out of here today, bringing it back to the program here. What are you most excited about in terms of the future of your program? And maybe what's one thing that you wish more people knew about your program?
Well, I'm excited about our growth. I think we're just scratching the surface here at LMU, and I'm excited about our players that we have coming in. I'm excited about the guys we have coming back. I'm excited that our staff is, together. I've been very fortunate. You talk about retention. Part of growing a good program is keeping your staff together. And, we've been together now for 4 years. So those things excite me because I think we've done so much of the heavy lifting, and, we're at a point now where, if we can continue to add the right pieces and have the right mindset, the trajectory here, I believe, is really good, and it's hard. All right. We're in a really good league. No games are easy. But I do believe that, our guys are starting to believe, and, that's part of winning. You have to believe that. And I think this past year has shown them that, no, you are capable. There is more you can get done. So now we got to get that more part accomplished. And that's an exciting part of the year. I think, in terms of our program, I don't know if there's anything I wish people would know. I think it's more from a university that, this is a great university. It's a great place to go to school. And I think everything that you dream about as a coach or as a player can be accomplished at LMU. I don't think there's any limitations to how good this place can be. And, I'm really proud to wear the LMU across my chest.
And watching these LMU Lions play, it absolutely shines through that these players are bought in and they are believing in the direction this program is going. Stan Johnson, the head basketball coach there at LMU. If you are not paying attention to WCC basketball, I don't know what you're doing with your time. It is one of the most fun and competitive leagues in the entire country, and LMU is in a position to go toe-to-toe with every team in that conference. So, Coach Johnson, really appreciate you taking some time and sharing your insights with us today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Man.
And what an awesome opportunity it was to sit down with Coach Johnson. Really got a holistic view of how he's approaching things there at LMU. Mike, any initial kind of thoughts or takeaways from listening to that dialogue?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is a very business-like approach. He seems like a man that knows what he wants to do, knows what his team is capable of. really knows how to build a program from the previous stops that he's been at. So that kind of shines through when you listen to him talk. I think another big thing is obviously, getting these transfer portal pieces in and getting them to mesh, right? Like we've seen times where teams you can win the portal, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to win anything. So that's interesting to see that, he's more concerned with fit and, how his team's going to play in different, settings and styles and tournaments and things like that, and coming together, gelling. And then, just to see him beat Gonzaga last year, St. Mary's last year, some really quality wins. Just hearing that his team is, starting to believe, right? You beat those two teams who are the, kind of the juggernauts in the league for so long, for basically the last 20 years. And those are the two that you got to knock off. It's been, a 2-3 bid league for most of the time here over the last, 10 plus years here. And I just think that, if you get the kids to start believing, and, you just got to get over that last hurdle, which are those two big dogs up at the top. But it seems like he's got his program in the right direction. And I think he's going to do some pretty special things at Loyola Marymount.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they're going in the right direction, right? Obviously, they were regular season wins, but knocking off the likes of Gonzaga and St. Mary's is not nothing. He mentioned his win there in the holiday tournament that took place in last year, right? Like that was a pretty well represented tournament overall. Like, these Lions have a lot of things that are working in their favor. And as we talk through it, right, like we were smiling, we were talking about it backstage when he mentioned Big Lars. The addition that he made there through the portal. Feels like this team is going to be another squad that has a ton of size and is very experienced, which has kind of become a theme for college basketball lately, right? Like you get old, you get guys that have a lot of playing time on the court, and you're going to be feisty and in the mix. So definitely a ton of fun to sit down with Coach Johnson. Really insightful stuff that he shared with us. So appreciate his time and appreciate the opportunity to get read in on these Loyola Marymount Lions. Like we mentioned off the top, though, that is not all that we are here to do. We still have the down and dirty business of updating everyone on the transfer portal, right? We got 5 guys that have recently made their decision, and we'll close out with the 5 best players still in the portal. Mike, in the case of the former, let's kick everyone off with the top 5 guys that have made a decision for where they're going to play next season.
Yeah, let's do that. Start with number 246, a newer addition to the transfer portal board over on drroto.com, which features our top 250 rated players. Quincy Guerrier, a name that we are very, very familiar with over the past few years here. Forward out of Oregon, he's 6'8", 200 points. Almost shot 35% from 3. He went ahead and committed to Illinois. So it'll be an interesting fit there. You obviously lose Matthew Mayer, potentially Coleman Hawkins from that Illinois front court. So Guerrier is probably going to get a prime chance to make some noise there. Obviously had a very good start. We talked about it a few shows ago. Very good start in his career at Syracuse. Just kind of seemed like he got a little bit lost in the shuffle over at Oregon. I mean, obviously, Kello Ware was there, didn't get to play much. So that just kind of tells you how deep the front court was, where obviously being a high-level transfer going to Indiana, you had Navali Dante, you had Nate Biddle there. So, just kind of got a little lost in the shuffle. I think he's still very, very serviceable. He's a good three-point shooter, a quality rebounder, can block shots for you. And I think Illinois is getting a nice piece here, especially if Coleman Hawkins decides to stay in the draft.
Yeah, I think it goes a bit overlooked because Oregon didn't exactly have the season that they wanted, but that front court was absolutely loaded last year. So we've got Quincy heading over to those Fighting Illini. The next player up on our top 5 list here, number 142 on your big board, that's Austin Nunez, the guard out of Arizona State, 6'2", 170 pounds. Another player that, is a very solid and promising prospect, but didn't exactly get a ton of playing time last year. 4.5 points per game will really tell that story, right? Shot it okay from distance when he was out there, about 38% from range. And he's committing to Ole Miss. Chris Beard at it again, right? He's definitely taking the volume approach here in the transfer portal. Chris Beard and Ole Miss are getting a really nice combo guard. big time upside. He's, highly recruited player. He showed some flashes in that limited playing time. Seems like he can score on all three levels. So we'll see if that extrapolates out as he gets a full complement of minutes. But ultimately, another really solid addition for Chris Beard. So Austin Nunez, 142 on that big board. Mike, let's jump over to the 119th player who now has a new school to play for.
Yeah, that's DJ Davis, the guard from UC Irvine. I should say the sharpshooter has committed to Butler. 6'1", 170, averaged 15 points, 2 boards. But the thing that sticks out is the 40% from three. First team All Big West. We talked about him a few shows ago as well. And the biggest piece here is that Thad Matta is getting some shooting, and that was what they were missing last year. The Butler shot under 33% as a team last year. So adding a guy that can shoot 40% from three and he has deep range. This guy can absolutely get it done from beyond the arc. This is huge for Butler. So another prime pickup there for the Butler Bulldogs.
And another example of a head coach, in this case, Thad Matta, getting exactly what they need from a fit and role standpoint in the transfer portal. Our next player up, Javon Small, number 49 on your board, is the guard out of East Carolina, 6'2", 200 pounds even. Definitely showed some stuff last year, 15.8 points per game, almost 5 boards, almost 7 assists. So definitely the type of guy that can stuff the stat sheet. And he has committed to those Oklahoma State Cowboys. This was a fun one to watch. It sounded like Oklahoma and Oklahoma State were really neck and neck for the services of Mr. Small. Ultimately, those Pokes reign superior and get the job done. And in Small, they're getting one of our favorite breakout candidates from last year. This is a guy that can go out and create a shot for himself, but as evidenced by those almost 6 assists per games, he can also dish. He can create shots for others. So, these are the type of players that Oklahoma State is really going to need if they want to take that next step in the Big 12 next year. Last player on our board, team formerly in the Big 12, one that Mike might be a little bit familiar with. Mike, UT Longhorns got a guy. Tell everyone about your newest addition.
Yeah, number 41, Kadin Shedrick, the big man from Virginia. Look, the stats aren't going to jump out right. 6.2 points, 4 rebounds, a little over a block a game. But committed to Texas, and Rodney Terry is his first big get as the official head coach of the Texas Longhorns. I mean, the kid's a big-time shot blocker. He didn't get big minutes. You expect these numbers to go up as he gets 25, roughly 30 minutes a game. He had that monster game against Furman in the tournament, even though that ended in heartbreak. You put on the tape, and the kid is a menace on the defensive side, and he's got a growing offensive game. We haven't seen much of it, but that's the thing that that Terry really needs is someone that can go out and create on the defensive side, create some offense, on runouts and things like that. And he showed the ability to play faster. That's something Chris Beard was showing spurts of, finishing in the 350s the year before in tempo. He had gotten it to about 170, 180 before he was let go. And then Rodney Terry just kind of ran with it and got into the top 100 in tempo. So you need guys like this because it can be game changers on the defensive side and someone that can clean up the offensive glass too. So this is a really nice pickup. It's got a lot of upside. I think it's kind of untapped too. I think once he gets some minutes, I think we can see some bigger numbers from Shedrick.
Yeah, definitely feels like a player that can continue to keep that arrow pointing up as he gets more and more playing time for those Longhorns. Mike, kind of curious to get your point of view. There was some chatter about his fit overall in that front court with the likes of Dylan Dessou out there. How do you see Coach Terry, integrating these two pieces in the front court for the Longhorns next year?
Yeah, I think we have to see what's going to happen with the rest of the roster. I mean, Dylan Mitchell coming back is going to be interesting. You have the 5-star, probably one-and-done player in Ron Holland coming in, who's also a 3-4 man. So, if anything, it's kind of could be the same as last year. You're going to have depth at that position. Depends on how Terry wants to play it. If he wants to be a little more defensive-oriented, obviously you could start Shedrick. He'd come off the bench and play decent minutes. So, We saw, even though it's a guard position, Sir Jabari Rice, just because you don't start doesn't mean you can't have a huge impact on the game. So I think it really depends on what Mitchell decides to do, where they're going to play Ron Hall, if they're going to play him at the 3 or maybe play him some 4. So it's just a lot of different options that Terry can go to. He's more of an offensive, player that you can go to. We saw that in the tournament. And he's also someone that's a really good rebounder. So I think they can play together. That's a really big lineup. So he's got options for Coach Terry here. But Javon Small going to Oklahoma State, this is kind of what Coach Boynton there needed. Hasn't had really a true playmaker at that point guard position since Cade Cunningham. I think he's going to pay big dividends. I mean, the guy is awesome, like you put on the tape, and he can really make things happen. I don't see him having a tough time transitioning to the Big 12.
Yeah, definitely a fun name to watch, and certainly a lot of excitement around Shedrick there in Austin. If you're checking in on YouTube, do your part, hit those buttons. Like, you're already here. Don't be weird about it. But then jump into those comments. Let us know, of these 5 players that are up on your screen right now, which one are you most excited to see suit up for their new squad? Last segment of our show here, we're going to head into the top 5 remaining players on the big board still available in the portal. And like we said off the top, a lot of talent still available in this portal, right? Like, with how much information is flying out there, kind of feels like there might not be many names left. There are plenty of names left, and there are some big ones. Mike, why don't you kick us off with the number 19 player who has yet to choose his new home?
Yeah, let's talk about Tylor Perry. A lot of these guys we've obviously talked about over the course of the last 2-3 weeks, but yeah, it's a reminder here that there's still plenty of talent, like you just stated. He is the guard from North Texas, 5'11", 180 pounds, 17 points, shot 41% from 3. It looks like he's a Kansas State lean, potentially Ole Miss involved as well. And he can score from all 3 levels. He's a shot creator. He's pretty crafty around the rim, and he just has a clutch gene. Like, he's hit so many big shots for North Texas. So it'll be interesting to see where Perry lands. Kansas State obviously looking for someone to come in and fit that Marquise Noel type role there. So yeah, I think Perry would be a great addition in Kansas State. But also you've got Chris Beard over here recruiting lights out at Ole Miss, trying to get as many guys as he can. So, we'll see where he decides to go, but he's going to be a game changer once he does.
Yeah, Chris Beard is never too far away from any of these players, it seems. For whatever it's worth, On3 has this one rated as a 97% likelihood that Perry heads to Kansas State. And I mean, it might be kind of a lazy comparison, but undersized guard, right? Under 6 foot tall, filling in for Mighty Mouse himself, seems like it would be a pretty good fit on paper. So we'll see how this one unfolds. The next player up that has yet to choose his next team, number 15 on your big board, Matthew Cleveland, the Florida State forward. 6'7", 200 pounds last year, almost 14 points, 7.5 rebounds, and almost 2 steals per game. On3 has this one heavily favored for Auburn, or 95% likelihood there. Missouri is the runner-up by a good margin, 3% there. Either way, seems like Auburn has the inside track and Missouri is on the radar. So Cleveland potentially is SEC bound. Cleveland himself, very physical, tough player. He really makes the guys that he's going up against work for it on both sides of the ball. He's versatile. He's got pretty good handles for his size. It feels like, especially as the season went on, he just really started to build some good momentum. He's getting better and better, and he's got a ton of upside. So like I mentioned, Auburn has the inside track here according to the On3 projections, but wherever Cleveland lands, they are getting an absolute dog. Number 11 on your big board is up next. Mike, tell the people about the guard out of Cal Baptist.
Yeah, a lot of people might not know about this kid, but Taran Armstrong, 6'6", 190-pound point guard, averaged 11 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5 assists. This one's interesting. On3, they have Gonzaga and Creighton kind of in that 30% range, with Gonzaga as a slight favorite, but you got to think, Nembhard going there, does that kick him over to Creighton? But Creighton just landed Stephen Ashworth. And there's some talk that maybe he goes pro. He has that type of talent. I mean, he's a big point guard, 6'6", 6'7". He can play off the ball too, so he could play some 2 guards. So it's not to say that if he goes to Gonzaga or Creighton that he couldn't play some 2 and give that team 2 really good ball handlers. He might be the best passer in the college ranks, though, if he decides to stay. So Taran Armstrong, talk about upside of Cleveland. Like, this kid has plenty of upside. And, yeah, he could be a game changer at the collegiate level if he decides to, stick with it here.
No shortage of teams that would be excited about a player that can dish like Armstrong joining their team, right? So we look at those on three metrics: 33% Gonzaga, 27% Creighton. Put differently, there might be a couple favorites, but this one is wide open with regard to Armstrong. We will head into not only the top 10, but the top 5. Number 4 on your big board, one of our favorites, Max Abmas, the 6', 175-pound guard out of Oral Roberts. This kid is an absolute bucket, almost 22 points a game, 4.5 boards, 4 assists even. So can definitely stuff the stat sheet. On three has this one neck and neck between your beloved Longhorns and those Kansas State Wildcats trying to fill in their backcourt. I mean, look, big time scorer, burst onto the scene 2 years ago during that magical Sweet 16 run. I mean, look, Mike, you can probably speak to this better than I can, but this is a player that, Texas severely needs to, really make that big splash with. And obviously K-State is working that Noel breakout of last season as a reason to make the jump over there. So it'll be really interesting to see, where he lands and how they surround him with talent overall. But before we move on to your number one player, I guess what is the Texas perspective on Abmas as a prospect, and where do you think that he ultimately makes the decision?
Yeah, I think a lot of this maybe comes down to Tylor Perry, we talked about earlier. If he decides to go to Kansas State, I really don't see Abmas going to Kansas State. There's been a lot of chatter about Texas. Texas big time priority getting someone that can fill the Marcus Carr role, someone that's an absolute scorer, and that's what Abmas is. So Texas does have the inside track here. I think a lot of this has to hinge with I guess Perry and Abmas could play together. That's a really small backcourt though, so it looks like they're probably going to split up, and we'll see. Only time will tell.
Yeah, this one is neck and neck, despite Abmas being spotted at UT baseball games and around Austin. I'm definitely going to have to watch this one as it will come down to the wire. And coming down to the wire for our show, the number one player on your big board is still available. All eyes feel like they're on Hunter Dickinson. Tell everyone what they need to know about where he is in this process and what kind of player that he's taking his talents with.
Yeah, so Dickinson, 6'10", 250. We've talked about him a ton. I'm almost averaged double-double, 18.5 points, 9 rebounds, almost 2 blocks. Look, on three, he's got this thing 42% Kentucky, Kansas 37%. I tend to think it leans more Kansas. We have to see what's going on with Shedrick. Obviously, he's a monster in the middle. He has a growing outside game. We saw him step back and knock down 3-pointers. I mean, this is a big boy battle, Kentucky and Kansas going at it. Man, like it's gonna be a game changer. Where these 5 guys go, it's gonna be game changing. So, yeah, I mean, I still, if I had to put my money on it, I would still put Kansas here. It just feels like almost a better fit. But yeah, there's been some chatter that Calipari, he can recruit. Got a bunch of 5-star guys coming in too. So, man, wherever he lands, if it's one of these 2 programs, they're for sure going to be a top 10 type team if they weren't already. So just kind of solidifying that by getting this guy.
Yeah, if they weren't already is the way to put it, right? The teams that are out there lobbying for Dickinson services are absolute heavyweights, and it's fun to watch them just throw haymakers at each other trying to bring him in. For the record, Mike's money would go on Kansas, which is just a hair behind Kentucky in terms of on three. So you might even get a little bit of plus money on that if you were to place that bet. Mike, any closing thoughts on this 10-pack of players that we ran through, or kind of overarching thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I think we talk about it like, we're mentioning these 5 guys are uncommitted and how they're game changers, but, subtle things like a Brady Manick going from Oklahoma to, to UNC, a Darian Trammell, going from the University of Seattle to San Diego State. I mean, just because you're not a top 20, I mean, there's what I think it saw last, it was 1,600 guys are in the portal. Look, roster retention is still key, but obviously getting pieces that fit and that are able to gel with the team that you currently have, that's huge as well. So while it's fun to talk about, man, this guy landed here and this guy landed here, at a certain point, they can't all be great, right? Some guys are just going to be good. Some guys are going to be average. Some guys just won't fit. We've seen that too. And so, yeah, it's fun to talk about it. It's all on paper, right, until the season starts. But obviously, you would feel better landing some of these guys at the top of the board. But don't sleep on an impact that someone like Austin Nunez could have. Someone like DJ Davis as a shooter to Butler could have, and just a lot of these guys that we talk about. And that's why we like to bring this information to you guys, give our thoughts on it, and really see what these coaches are doing in the portal.
Yeah, undervalued aspect of this whole thing is fit, right? If there's something that your team needs, if there is a hole on your roster, if there was something that was keeping you from taking that next step last year, you go out and you get someone that does those things well. And even if they're not a top 100, top 50 player on the board, if they check the boxes, if they make up weaknesses for you, then it will go a long way in terms of raising the level for your entire team. That will do it for tonight's show. But like we mentioned earlier, we're never too far away. We're going to be back at this thing probably in the next, 24 hours, 48 hours, 15 minutes, maybe. Just whenever the next big news dump hits, we're going to be back out here. But some of the things that we have planned specifically coming up this week, we're sitting down with BYU head coach Mark Pope, get his point of view there as BYU gets ready to change conferences in the upcoming season. And as always, we'll be back with you doing more portal updates, making sure that you have the latest news on the guys that have committed, on the guys that are still in the portal. And we're also going to start to weave in some of those portal winners overall, right? We did it about a week ago, talked about the teams that have really overhauled the face of their squads by way of the portal. Really want to talk about how those players fit in and the prospects for that team overall heading into the upcoming season. So definitely stay locked here on Green Screens Media. If you're on YouTube, not only should you be subscribed, hit that notification bell so you don't miss that fresh content as we push it out. And like Mike mentioned before, he is updating his big board over at drroto.com seemingly by the hour. Almost every time that I'm getting a news alert pushed over to me, seems like Mike's got that spreadsheet up and figuring out where that guy fits into the top 250. So if you're not already, get over to drroto.com, get yourself subscribed, check out Mike's big board. Let's get this bread.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drroto.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.